Tonight, in this podcast, we're going to look at something that almost everyone experiences, but like almost no one actually talks about.
Right. Because it's so internal.
Exactly. It's that quiet, just really heavy feeling that settles right into your chest when you are about to look at a bank statement.
Oh, yeah. That exact moment.
You know the one. You are sitting there, the app is loading on your screen, and before a single number even appears, this sudden wave of emotion just washes over you.
Yes. And it's intense.
It really is. It might be like a sharp spike of guilt, or maybe a quiet defensive pride,
Yeah.
or maybe it's just a sudden tightening in your throat, like a flash of fear,
Yeah.
or just this profound sinking exhaustion.
And the really fascinating part about that specific feeling, which is what we're going to explore in this deep dive, is that it actually has absolutely nothing to do with the math.
Nothing at all.
Right. Because the math hasn't even loaded yet. The math is literally just data.
Yeah.
But your body is reacting as if you are about to receive like a verdict on your actual survival.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. The physical reality of that moment is profound because we have been conditioned, almost since birth to believe that money is this purely rational domain.
Right. Like it's just arithmetic.
Exactly. We think of it as just addition, subtraction, budgets, spreadsheets. But the reality is that our nervous system, it does not process money as math.
No, not at all.
It processes it as a matter of safety, of belonging, of like your identity.
So when you're waiting for that screen to load, you aren't waiting to see a balance.
No, you're bracing yourself. You're bracing to see a reflection of your worth, your security, and honestly, your past.
And to figure out why our bodies react this way, we've gathered a really deep stack of research for this deep dive. I mean, we're looking at cognitive science from Harvard economists, clinical behavioral models from financial therapists, all of it.
Yeah, we really wanted to pull from everywhere.
Right, because our mission today is to decode what we're calling the hidden emotional economy.
I love that term.
We want to understand why we make the decisions we make, and more importantly, why we judge ourselves so harshly for them.
Which we do constantly.
We do. But before we get into like the clinical research and the data, I think we have to step away from the spreadsheets for a second. We need to look at the actual behaviors that happen in the quiet, unseen moments of our lives.
The real human moment.
Exactly. I want you to picture a scene. You're sitting in your parked car in the driveway. The engine is off. It's just, ticking slightly as it cools down.
We've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. And you just bought something. Maybe it's a piece of clothing or a gadget, just something small that you didn't explicitly need.
Right.
And before you walk through the front door to see your partner, you are sitting there in the driver's seat, frantically pulling the price tags off.
Oh, man.
You ball up the tags, you shove them into the center console, and then you open the trunk and literally bury the shopping bag underneath the spare tire cover.
Or you like stuff it into your backpack so it looks like it's been there all along.
Yes, exactly. And then you take a deep breath, you smooth out your face, and you walk inside.
That scene is so visceral because
Yeah.
if you ask someone in that exact moment, like, why are you hiding the bag? They will almost always give you a really logical excuse.
Right. They'll say, I just don't want to have a conversation about it right now.
Exactly. I had a long day, or it's my money, I work hard, I can do what I want.
Yeah.
But underneath those rationalizations, if you look at the physiological markers, there is an intense, visceral sensation happening in the body.
Like what? What's actually happening?
Well, there's a tight chest. There's this irrational flush of shame rising up the back of the neck. There's the quiet dread of a potential conversation about a credit card bill later on.
Wow.
The body in that parked car is literally in a state of acute threat.
I find myself comparing it to the feeling of waiting for a medical test result.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Right? Because when you are sitting in a sterile room waiting for the doctor to call you back, your anxiety is not about the physical piece of paper the lab printed the results on.
No, of course not. The paper is harmless.
Exactly. It's entirely harmless.
Yeah.
It's just wood pulp and ink. Your anxiety is about what that result says, about who you are, what your body is doing, and what your future holds.
Yes.
And money feels exactly the same way. The credit card bill is just a piece of paper or pixels on a screen.
Yeah.
But we react to it as if it holds, like, the absolute power to define our character.
That medical analogy perfectly captures the gravity of it. And this quiet negotiation with our self-worth, It extends far beyond just hiding things in the trunk of a car.
Where else do we see it?
Well, think about another deeply human picture. Imagine opening your closet and looking down at a row of inexpensive, uncomfortable, frankly ugly shoes.
Oh, the ugly shoes, yeah.
Right. You don't even like these shoes. They pinch your feet, the soles wear out way too quickly, and they just don't make you feel good or confident when you put them on.
But you bought them anyway.
You bought them anyway, one pair at a time, month after month. And why?
Because buying the nice ones felt too scary.
Exactly. Because the idea of walking into a store and spending a larger lump sum amount of money on one single pair of high-quality shoes that you actually like, it felt like a physical impossibility.
It felt dangerous.
It felt physically dangerous. The nervous system perceived that larger purchase as a direct threat to your survival.
So you just default to the cheap ones.
Yeah, so you bought the ugly shoes over and over again just to avoid the anxiety of the larger purchase, even though logically and mathematically you ended up spending significantly more money in the long run.
Man. So you are just staring at a closet full of evidence that your decisions are not rational.
Exactly.
And look, if you are listening to this, you probably have a money habit just like this that you keep secret. Or maybe one that completely baffles you when you actually stop to think about it.
We all do. Every single one of us.
We really do. And that is exactly why we're here today. Like we said, we're not here to look at spreadsheets. We are not here to give you financial advice or tell you how to balance a budget or scold you about compound interest. We are here to look at the human being holding the spreadsheet.
That's the most important part.
We want to understand the quiet, unseen forces that drive you to hide that shopping bag in the trunk or to buy those ugly shoes when you know better.
And to understand those unseen forces, we have to start by actually naming the idea. We need to give a concrete vocabulary to this very abstract experience.
Okay, so what do we call it?
Well, in the field of financial psychology, researchers and clinicians, notably Brad and Ted Klontz, they identified a concept known as money scripts.
Money scripts.
Yes. Money scripts are underlying unconscious transgenerational beliefs about money, and they are typically developed in early childhood.
Has been there for a long time.
A very long time. And these scripts, they fundamentally drive our adult financial behaviors. You can think of them as the invisible lines of code running in the background of your psychological operating system.
Okay, I want to make sure I am fully grasping the scale of this. If we operate on scripts, this implies we are living in what we might call a hidden emotional economy.
Yes, exactly.
And in this hidden economy, dollars are not just neutral units of exchange, they are emotional currency.
They absolutely are.
They are proxies for love, for safety, for control, for independence, and for self-worth. So when you are making a financial decision, whether it's buying a coffee or signing a mortgage, you think you are engaging in a mathematical transaction.
But you're really not.
You're actually negotiating in this emotional economy. You're trying to secure a feeling, or you're trying to avoid a pain.
And the mechanism behind how this starts is fascinating. A money script is almost always formed in response to what psychologists call a financial flashpoint.
A flashpoint, what does that look like?
So a flashpoint is an early, highly emotional event, or maybe a prolonged series of events that are deeply associated with money.
Like a trauma.
It can be. It could be something highly dramatic, like watching your parents argue viciously over a past due notice at the kitchen table, or experiencing the sudden, terrifying loss of a family home.
That makes sense. That would definitely leave a mark.
Right, but it could also be something incredibly subtle, really insidious.
Like what?
It could just be a parent constantly, quietly repeating a phrase like, "We are just not the kind of people who can afford things like that," or "Rich people are selfish."
Wow. Yeah, I can hear that.
These experiences, even the subtle ones, they leave a permanent neurological imprint. They form the core beliefs that you carry into adulthood, often without ever consciously realizing they are even there.
It's just running in the background.
Exactly. So when you find yourself engaging in a financial behavior that logically makes no sense, it is not because you are foolish. It is because you are diligently following a script that was written years, perhaps decades ago, by someone else.
Okay, I have to say, I am struggling to fully accept this without a little pushback.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are we genuinely saying that my bank account is essentially a diary of my childhood? Like every purchase I make, every dollar I save, is just me acting out a script someone else wrote.
I know. It's a massive reframe, isn't it?
It really is. Because if I am buying those ugly shoes we talked about,
hmm
does that mean I am just an actor hitting my marks on a stage that was built by my parents' financial anxieties?
It's a confronting thought. But clinically, yes. The bank account is indeed the outward mathematical manifestation of the internal psychological
That's
script.
as just, wow.
You are the protagonist of your current life, certainly, but you are reading from a script that was handed to you before your prefrontal cortex was developed enough to critically evaluate it.
Because as a kid, you just absorb it.
Exactly. When a child experiences a financial flashpoint, they do not have the cognitive tools to say, oh, my parents are experiencing systemic economic pressure.
Right, they can't rationalize that.
No. The child simply internalizes, money is dangerous, or there will never be enough. Recognizing that origin point is the very first crucial step toward understanding your own behavior.
It's like turning on the lights in a dark room.
It is,
Yeah.
because when you finally see the script for what it is, you can have that profound realization. You can say, oh, so that is what this is called. I'm not uniquely flawed. I'm just running a script.
I am not uniquely flawed. That is exactly the realization we want to reach in this exploration.
Yes.
We want to take the judgment completely out of the equation. And before we transition into the behavioral science, the clinical research, and the cognitive data that actually proves how this happens in the physical brain, I want to deliver a calm invitation.
Please do.
If this conversation is resonating with you, if you are recognizing your own hidden bags in the trunk or your own closet of ugly shoes, we would love for you to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment.
We really want to hear from you.
We do. Tell us what your money script might be. We want you to be part of this exploration so you never miss a deep dive into the patterns that shape our lives.
So, to truly understand the gravity of these scripts, we must transition from the clinical theory to the hard cognitive science.
Let's get into the data.
We need to look at what is physically happening in the human mind when we are dealing with money, and specifically when we are dealing with a lack of it.
Right. Scarcity.
Exactly. This brings us to the groundbreaking work of Senthil Mullainathan, a behavioral economist at Harvard, and Eldar Shafir, a cognitive psychologist at Princeton.
And their research was specifically focused on scarcity, right?
Yes, they dedicated their research to the concept of scarcity, and what they found is that worrying about money when it is tight does not just make us feel sad or anxious.
It does more than that.
It literally captures our brains. It fundamentally reduces our cognitive capacity.
I want to spend time on this because the methodology of their research is incredible. They didn't just, observe this theoretically, right?
Yeah. No, they measured it in real time with human subjects.
Yeah. They conducted a study with sugarcane farmers in India. And to really understand the significance of this, we have to look at the daily lives of these farmers.
It's a very specific environment.
It is. They experience this very specific natural cycle of wealth and poverty based entirely on the agricultural calendar.
Mm.
So right before the harvest, they are poor. Their resources from the previous year are completely depleted.
It's extreme scarcity.
Right. They are pawning items, they are borrowing money, they are literally struggling to figure out how to put food on the table every single day. And then right after the harvest, they sell their crops.
And everything changes.
Everything changes. They receive their annual income in a lump sum, and they are suddenly flush with cash.
So the researchers realized this was a perfect natural experiment.
A brilliant setup. They took the exact same individuals and gave them rigorous cognitive tests at both points in the year.
The implications of testing the exact same individuals cannot be overstated here, because it completely removes the variables of baseline intelligence or education or genetics.
Right, it's the exact same brain.
Exactly the same brain. And the results they gathered were staggering. Before the harvest, when the farmers were experiencing intense financial scarcity, they made 15% more errors on tests of executive control.
15%. That's a huge drop.
It is. Their scores on fluid intelligence tests, which, measure the ability to think logically and solve problems in novel situations, those scores dropped dramatically.
Wow.
To translate their findings into a metric we easily understand, the drop in cognitive function was equivalent to losing 13 to 14 IQ points.
13 to 14 points.
Yes, that is a massive, life-altering impairment. To put it in perspective, it is the equivalent of the cognitive decline a person experiences after severe, prolonged physical exhaustion, like being kept completely awake and stressed for a full 24 hours straight.
That is just wild, because the farmers didn't suddenly become less intelligent before the harvest.
No, their innate capability had not vanished at all.
But this scarcity itself, the overwhelming, crushing mental burden of trying to survive on too little, it consumes so much of their mental bandwidth that They literally had less mind available to process anything else.
That's exactly it.
A 13 to 14-point drop in IQ. I mean, that is the difference between functioning normally and being considered severely cognitively impaired.
Yes, and it happens just from the ambient stress of scarcity. Mullainathan and Shafir refer to this as the bandwidth tax.
The bandwidth tax. It is a brilliant term, and I want to unpack the analogy they use to explain this, which is the air traffic controller.
Oh, this is the best way to visualize it.
Right. So imagine you are an air traffic controller. You are sitting up in the tower, and your entire radar screen is full of tiny blinking lights representing planes.
Okay, so a lot to keep track of.
Exactly. And suddenly, you realize two planes are on a direct collision course right in the center of your screen. What happens to your attention?
It locks in.
It locks in entirely. You zero in on those two planes. Your entire focus, all of your cognitive energy, your adrenaline, literally everything is dedicated to preventing that immediate catastrophic crash.
That hyperfocus is a survival mechanism. It makes sense.
It does make sense. But the critical question is, while you are hyper-focused on those two planes in the center, what are you missing?
You're missing everything else.
Yes. You are completely neglecting the periphery of the radar screen. You literally do not have the cognitive bandwidth left over to notice the other planes circling at the edges.
And some of those planes might be running low on fuel.
Exactly, or drifting dangerously off course, but you cannot see them.
This is the biological phenomenon they call tunneling. Scarcity captures the mind, and it forces a hyperfocus on immediate survival.
We get stuck in the tunnel.
You do. When
Yeah.
you are financially scarce, you can only see the immediate threat. You see the rent that is due tomorrow. You see the car engine that just started smoking.
Right.
You lose the neurological ability to see the periphery, which in this context is the future. Long-term planning, evaluating the compounding cost of a high-interest loan, making healthy preventative decisions, all of those things fall completely outside the tunnel.
So basically, being low on money is a cognitive collision course.
That's a perfect way to say it.
And it is vital to understand that it's not just extreme systemic poverty that does this. The bandwidth tax can hit anyone who experiences a sudden gap between what they have and what they need.
Yes. The researchers conducted another study to prove this exact point.
The mall study, right?
Right. They did this in a mall in New Jersey. They took average shoppers, a mix of lower income and higher income individuals, and they asked them a hypothetical question.
What was the question?
They said, your car needs a repair that will cost $150. How do you go about making this decision? And then immediately after posing the scenario, they gave them the cognitive tests.
Okay, so testing them right after the prompt.
Exactly. Now, for a $150 repair, both the lower income and higher income individuals performed equally well. Their cognitive bandwidth was fully intact.
Because $150 isn't enough to trigger the panic.
Right. But the brilliance of the study is in the second variable. They took a different group of shoppers and changed one single detail. They asked, your car needs a repair that will cost $1,500.
Oh, that's a big difference.
A huge difference. For the higher income group, who had enough financial slack of their lives that a $1,500 expense was merely an annoyance, their cognitive scores remained exactly the same as the first group.
But what about the lower income group?
For the lower income group, for whom a sudden $1,500 expense represented an absolute crisis, their cognitive scores plummeted.
Just from a hypothetical question.
Yes. Just the mere thought of trying to come up with $1,500 triggered the bandwidth tax. It eroded their fluid intelligence and executive control in real time.
That is terrifying.
It is. The mental effort required to run the calculations of survival, asking yourself, which bill do I skip? Who can I borrow from? How do I get to work? Well, that internal dialogue depleted their cognitive resources so thoroughly that they failed at the subsequent unrelated tasks.
I think about how society talks about poverty and financial struggle when I hear this.
We're so harsh about it.
We really are. When we look at someone making a financial decision that seems mathematically short-sighted, like taking out a payday loan with a 400% interest rate, the cultural reflex is just deep judgment.
Why would you do that?
Exactly. We think that is a terrible decision. You should just plan better. You should budget.
Oh, what the science is definitively telling us is that in that moment of crisis, they literally do not have the cognitive bandwidth to see the future costs.
The future is just a plane on the edge of the radar screen.
Yes, And it is outside the tunnel. They are just trying to stop the two planes from colliding today.
Wow.
And the judgment assumes a level playing field of cognitive resources that simply does not exist in a state of scarcity.
It's totally unfair.
It is. And this cognitive capture is then compounded by other hardwired human biases, particularly something called loss aversion.
Loss aversion. Let's talk about that.
So this concept is a cornerstone of behavioral economics. It was originally proposed by the pioneering psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky.
Okay.
Loss aversion describes the psychological reality that the pain of losing something is far more intense than the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing.
Really?
Yes. Empirically, losing $50 hurts your psyche about twice as much as finding $50 feels good. The scale is inherently rigged toward pain.
I am so fascinated by the biology of this.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a philosophical feeling of disappointment, is it? It is an actual physiological event.
It is entirely physiological. Researchers have actually measured the autonomic nervous system during these transactions.
What do they
When an individual faces a financial loss, even a very small, relatively inconsequential one, there is a measurable spike in bodily arousal.
Like a panic response.
Yes.
Wow.
Your pupils literally dilate, allowing more light in so you can scan for threats. Your heart rate increases, pumping blood to your extremities.
Wow. Over a few dollars.
Over a few dollars.
Yeah.
The physical body reacts to the loss of a few dollars in the exact same biological sequence it would use to react to a physical predator in the environment.
That is incredible.
This heightened state of arousal is clinically referred to as loss attention. Our brains evolved to prioritize threats over opportunities.
Because missing an opportunity is fine, but missing a threat means death.
Exactly. We allocate significantly more neurological attention to a situation when there is a threat of loss than when there is a prospect of a gain.
Which explains so much about our seemingly irrational behavior. Like, it completely explains the endowment effect.
Yes, an endowment effect.
Right, which is the fact that we place a higher monetary value on things simply because we already own them. Like, if I own a standard ceramic coffee mug, I might refuse to sell it to you for less than $10. But if I do not own that exact same mug and I see it in a store, I would never pay more than $5 to buy it.
Because selling it feels like a loss.
Right, and my brain initiates a mild panic response at the thought of any loss.
The brain's panic response completely distorts our rational valuation. It is the reason we hold on to losing investments far too long, hoping they will rebound rather than accepting the loss.
Or holding on to junk in the garage.
Yes. It's why we refuse to part with items in our garage we haven't touched in a decade, all to avoid the physiological pain of letting them go.
It's so exhausting to realize our brains are doing this to us.
It really is. And we combine this biological panic with another highly irrational cognitive habit. It's called mental accounting.
Mental accounting.
Yes. This is a concept developed by the Nobel laureate Richard Thaler. Basic classical economics dictates that money is fungible.
Fungible, meaning what exactly?
Fungibility means that a dollar is a dollar is a dollar, regardless of where it came from or what form it takes. But human psychology completely rejects fungibility.
I have to admit, I struggle with this one personally. It sounds like a lack of self-control, but you are saying it is an automatic cognitive categorization.
It is very automatic.
But how is my brain actually distinguishing between, say, a paycheck and a birthday check? They both deposit as identical digital pixels in the exact same bank account.
The mechanism relies on subjective emotional categorization. We compartmentalize our money into different, invisible mental accounts based entirely on its origin and its intended use.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Let's look at the emotional weight of origin. If you work a grueling 40-hour week for a paycheck, your brain categorizes those funds as unhappy money.
Unhappy money. Because I had to work so hard for it.
Exactly. It is serious money acquired through sacrifice, and it's strictly meant for serious things like rent, electricity, and groceries.
Yeah.
You will agonize over spending an extra $10 of that unhappy money on a luxury.
Absolutely, I feel that deeply.
But suppose you are walking down the street and you find a crisp $100 bill on the sidewalk, or you receive a $100 birthday check from an aunt. Your brain categorizes that as happy money.
Happy money? It feels free.
It feels like windfall money, totally free from the burden of labor, so you are highly likely to take that $100 and blow it on an expensive, frivolous dinner.
Even if I needed it for something else.
Even if you had been diligently saving every penny of your paycheck to repair a broken water heater. The $100 you found could go toward the water heater. It is the exact same currency.
But my brain won't let me do it.
Right. Your brain refuses to treat it that way because doing so would require mixing happy money with a deeply unhappy responsibility.
I see this pattern in my own life constantly, especially with taxes. When I get a tax refund, it feels like an unexpected windfall.
Yes, the tax refund is the classic example.
My immediate instinct is to spend it on a vacation or, like, a piece of technology I have wanted. But mathematically, a tax refund is literally my own earned income that I overpaid to the government throughout the year. The government is just returning my own labor to me without interest. It is the exact same money, but because it arrived in a different envelope at a different time of year, my brain gives it an entirely different, much lighter emotional weight.
And this brings us to the core reason we're examining all of this science. We are looking at the bandwidth tax, the severe drop in executive function, the physiological panic of loss aversion, and the deep irrationality of mental accounting, not to overwhelm you with clinical data.
No, not at all.
We're doing it to offer a profound confirmation of your lived experience. Your brain is not a calculator. It was never designed to be one.
It's wired for survival.
Yes, your brain is wired to panic about loss. It is wired to compartmentalize resources emotionally, and most importantly, it is wired to shut down higher-order reasoning and force you into a state of hyper-focused tunneling when resources are scarce.
That is such a vital point of arrival. The science should feel like confirmation, not an accusation. It concerns that the things you do with money that make absolutely no sense mathematically are making perfect, elegant sense biologically and psychologically.
Very well said.
So, let's take these biological and psychological realities and look at how they manifest in the actual daily patterns of our lives. Let's go back to Brad Klontz and those 4 specific money scripts we mentioned earlier.
Okay, let's unpack them.
If these scripts are the code, how does the program run in real behavior?
Let's examine them closely, one by one. And as we detail these behaviors, it is highly likely that you will recognize yourself, or perhaps a parent or a partner, in at least one of these patterns.
I'm ready. What's the first one?
The first script identified in the research is money avoidance.
Money avoidance.
Yes. Individuals operating on this script fundamentally believe that money is bad, that it is a corrupting force, or that they themselves do not deserve to possess it.
Wow. So they just push it away entirely.
They do. They often feel a visceral sense of disgust toward wealth, viewing affluent people as inherently greedy or morally compromised.
I have absolutely observed this pattern in people I care about. This is the person who fundamentally believes money is the root of all evil.
Yes, that's the exact phrasing you'll hear them use.
And the real-world behavior is fascinating because, to an outside observer, it looks exactly like intentional self-sabotage.
It does look like that, but the self-sabotage is actually the defense mechanism. A money avoider will subconsciously, and sometimes consciously, push financial stability away.
How does that play out practically?
Well, in the workplace, they might chronically undercharge for their services. They will actively refuse to ask for a raise they have clearly earned, fearing that accumulating wealth will corrupt their values.
That is so sad to watch.
It is. And in their personal lives, they might avoid opening their bank statements or bills altogether. They'll just let the mail pile up on the counter.
Just ignore it and hope it goes away.
Right. But there is a profound paradox embedded in this script. While they view money with deep suspicion and try to distance themselves from it, they often secretly harbor the belief that having a sudden influx of money would magically solve all their internal distress.
That is quite the paradox.
The anxiety surrounding money is simply so high, so overwhelming to the nervous system, that they refuse to engage with it, living in a constant state of avoidance until an unavoidable crisis forces their hand.
And on the complete opposite end of the behavioral spectrum, we have the second script, which is money worship.
Yes, money worship is driven by the deep-seated, unshakable belief that more money will cure all unhappiness.
So they think it's the answer to everything.
They really do. The core assumption of the script is that money is the ultimate, singular key to freedom, joy, and emotional fulfillment.
But there's a catch, I assume.
The tragedy of this particular script is that the individual believes at a core level that they will never, ever have enough to finally be safe.
So the finish line just keeps moving into the distance.
It never stops moving.
If they make $50,000 a year, they are absolutely certain they will finally be able to exhale and be happy at $100,000.
Exactly.
But when they hit $100,000, the relief never arrives. They look around and become convinced the actual magic number for peace is $250,000.
That is exactly how it works. And the behavior that stems from this ever-moving finish line is a relentless, exhausting pursuit.
They just work themselves to the bone.
Yes, a money worshiper might prioritize work and earning over their health, their marriages, and their children. They are constantly chasing the next promotion or the next lucrative deal.
Or they spend it as fast as they make it.
Right. Alternatively, they may engage in compulsive shopping. They are attempting to literally buy the happiness and peace that they believe money promises.
But it doesn't work.
Or, on the flip side, they might aggressively hoard their belongings in cash. It is a profound emotional hunger that cannot be satisfied by the very thing it craves, because the hunger is actually for internal peace, not external currency.
That makes perfect sense. Then there is the third script, which feels incredibly relevant, almost epidemic in our modern culture. Money status.
Money status. This one is huge right now. Money status takes the pursuit of money and ties it directly and inextricably to a person's core identity.
So their money is who they are.
Yes. For someone operating on this script, their net worth is entirely indistinguishable from their self-worth. They believe that money is the primary objective metric of success, value, and power in society.
So they have to show it off.
Therefore, they feel a desperate compulsion to project an image of wealth to the world, regardless of what their actual private financial reality looks like.
This is where we see the intense, sometimes ruinous drive to keep up appearances.
Yes, the classic keeping up with the Joneses.
This is the behavior of buying or leasing the luxury vehicle you cannot afford, wearing designer labels covered in logos, and taking these lavish vacations funded entirely by high-interest credit cards.
It's all about the image.
The risk of heavy, crushing debt is incredibly high here, because the outward signaling to the tribe is deemed vastly more important than the internal stability of the household.
And to understand the drive to signal status, we have to introduce another psychological principle: social comparison.
Okay, what is that?
In the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced social comparison theory. It basically posits that humans have an inherent evolutionary drive to evaluate ourselves in relation to others.
We're constantly grading ourselves.
Yes. We constantly engage in upward comparison, which means comparing ourselves to those we perceive as being better off, more successful, or higher in the social hierarchy.
And the digital age has just poured jet fuel on this evolutionary fire.
It really has.
100 years ago, we were only comparing ourselves to our literal neighbors, right? The Joneses next door. The comparison was highly localized.
You only saw what the people on your street had.
Exactly. But today, we are comparing ourselves to highly curated, aggressively filtered, algorithmic highlight reels of billionaires, influencers, and celebrities on our phones.
It's an impossible standard.
We are subconsciously tracking where we rank in the global tribe every single time we open an app and scroll.
That framing is exactly right. We are constantly tracking our rank to ensure our social survival. And if your underlying script is money status, that relentless upward comparison drives you to purchase specific products.
Like the newest phone or the car.
Like the newest piece of wearable technology or a luxury electric vehicle, not for their actual utility, but because they serve as powerful, unmistakable social signals.
You want people to see you have it.
You are not buying a car. You are purchasing a symbol that declares you belong to a higher, safer tier of the tribe.
Wow.
And interestingly, clinical data shows that individuals with the money status script are statistically the most likely to lie to their spouses about their spending.
Oh, wow. We are definitely going to return to that concept of lying in relationships because financial infidelity is a massive piece of this puzzle.
It is.
But first, we need to complete the framework and name the fourth script, which is money vigilance.
Money vigilance. This one is characterized by extreme caution and a constant, unwavering state of alertness regarding finances.
So they are super careful.
People with this script believe deeply in the virtue of hard work, aggressive saving, and living strictly within their means.
Which, on the surface, in a society that values financial responsibility, this sounds like the ideal, healthiest script to have.
It does sound ideal on paper.
Right. These individuals pay their credit cards off in full every month, they have robust emergency funds, and they typically do not carry consumer debt.
But there's a dark side to it.
I figured there might be. It sounds incredibly responsible, but what is the actual internal emotional feeling of living with money vigilance?
The internal feeling is chronic, unyielding anxiety. A money-vigilant person lives in perpetual fear of sudden financial ruin, even when they are completely objectively and mathematically secure.
So they can never relax.
Never. The anxiety is so pervasive that they suffer a profound inability to enjoy the fruits of their labor.
That sounds exhausting.
An individual with this script might have millions of dollars safely invested, but they will still agonize for days over the cost of a moderately priced dinner at a restaurant.
Because they still feel like they're broke.
The safety they are trying to buy with their vigilance never actually arrives in their mind. The threat of ruin is always perceived to be just over the horizon.
It's the tragedy of winning the game, but never feeling safe enough to take off your armor.
That's beautifully put.
And what is so revealing is how all four of these scripts intertwine with our most intimate relationships. If we look at how money behaves in romantic partnerships, we see profound, undeniable connections to attachment styles.
Oh, absolutely. The connection is direct.
The very way you learn to bond with your caregivers as an infant and a young child shows up directly in your credit card receipts today.
The correlation is striking. Research out of the University of Arizona looked specifically at the intersection of adult romantic attachment styles and financial behaviors.
What do they find out?
They found that individuals with high attachment anxiety, those who harbor a deep, often unconscious fear of abandonment and constantly seek reassurance from their partners, they tend to use money as a tool to draw people closer.
Awesome.
They might frequently buy expensive, unprompted gifts for a partner. In a very literal sense, they are trying to buy their partner's love and sustained attention.
You're trying to secure the bond.
Yes. The spending is a behavioral attempt to soothe the internal terror of being unloved or left behind.
So the receipt for that expensive gift is really just a quiet plea for connection.
Yes, it is.
And what about the other side of the spectrum? How does the avoidant attachment style manifest financially?
People with high attachment avoidance are deeply uncomfortable with emotional intimacy. They tend to be dismissive of others' needs and prefer to rely entirely on themselves to avoid the vulnerability of dependence.
Right, they put up walls.
Exactly. And the researchers found that avoidant individuals often engage in intense materialism. They make expensive purchases as a way of projecting superiority, proving to themselves and others that they are better.
So they don't need anyone.
Right. It ensures they do not need to depend on anyone else for their sense of value. Their spending is essentially a fortress they build out of luxury goods to keep people at a safe, controllable distance.
That is so incredibly insightful.
But in both cases, whether the attachment is anxious or avoidant, the financial behavior is not about the items purchased. It is merely a coping mechanism for an underlying relational insecurity.
Which brings us right back to the scene we opened with. The parked car. The hidden shopping bag, frantically ripping off the tags before walking inside.
Yes.
This behavior actually has a name, doesn't it? Financial infidelity.
Financial infidelity, yes.
And the scale of it is stunning. The statistics show that 85% of people in relationships have hidden spending, hidden savings, or hidden debt from a partner.
85%.
85%. That means if you are listening to this right now and you have hidden a purchase in the back of your closet, you are not the anomaly. You are the vast, overwhelming majority.
Its prevalence is staggering, yet it remains deeply stigmatized. Financial infidelity generally falls into 6 main behavioral categories.
What are they?
Hiding spending, which is by far the most common. Keeping secret savings or hidden accounts the partner doesn't know about. Concealing the true amount of debts. Lying about the cost of gifts given to others. Hiding gambling losses. And finally, lying about the total amount of income earned.
Wow, that covers a lot of ground.
It does. And the standard societal narrative is that financial infidelity is a profound betrayal, often equated to sexual infidelity. It is heavily framed as an act of malicious, intentional deception.
And this is where I think we really need to interrogate the standard narrative.
I agree completely.
Given everything we have just explored about the bandwidth tax, the physiology of shame, the ingrained scripts and attachment styles, is financial infidelity really about deceiving the partner?
That's the big question.
Is it an act of malice? Or is it fundamentally about protecting oneself from the unbearable weight of shame? Like, is hiding the bag in the trunk an emotional defense mechanism?
That is the crucial reframe. When you look at financial infidelity through a trauma-informed psychological lens, the deception is almost never about malice or a desire to harm the partner.
It's about self-preservation.
It is entirely about emotional survival. Avoiding the confrontation over the credit card bill is a way of managing a nervous system that is completely overwhelmed by the prospect of shame.
They just can't handle the conversation.
Right. The person hiding the shopping bag in the trunk is desperately trying to avoid the unbearable, crushing feeling of being exposed as flawed, irresponsible, or out of control. The lie is not a weapon. It is a shield against vulnerability.
And this brings us to the core shift of this entire conversation. This is the most critical part of our deep dive.
Yes.
We have to explicitly, intentionally dismantle the societal shame around the concept of being bad with money.
It's so necessary.
Society loves to moralize financial decisions. We have all heard the adages and the phrases, "A fool and his money are soon parted."
Or pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right. We inherently equate wealth with virtue, intelligence, discipline, and hard work. And conversely, we equate financial struggle, debt, or poor spending habits with laziness, stupidity, or a fundamental moral failing.
But everything the cognitive science and the clinical psychology have shown us proves that this moralizing is entirely false.
It's completely made up.
It is a fabricated, punitive narrative. The reality is that our financial behaviors are deeply human adaptations to our environment.
So it's not a character flaw.
Not at all. If you make a short-sighted financial decision, it is not because you possess a bad character. It is not because you have low intelligence. It is because the bandwidth tax of scarcity has hijacked your executive function.
Your brain is literally forcing you into that choice.
Yes, your physical brain is doing exactly what it evolved over millennia to do. It is tunneling in on the immediate threat to ensure your survival today, willingly sacrificing the periphery of tomorrow.
Exactly. If you hide a purchase in the trunk of your car, it is not because you are a malicious, deceitful partner looking to betray someone you love.
Yeah.
It is because your nervous system is sounding a multi-alarm fire about a traumatic feeling of shame, and you are engaging in an avoidant defense mechanism to protect your psychological integrity.
And if you open your closet and find it full of ugly shoes that you hate, it is not because you are foolish or incapable of making a good choice.
Right.
It is because you are honoring a generational survival script. You are adhering to a deeply ingrained rule about money, worth, and safety that was written for you long before you ever had a choice in the matter.
We want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not a failure.
You are human.
Your behavior, whatever it is, makes complete logical human sense when viewed through the lens of psychology and survival. You are simply responding to an emotional economy with the specific tools that your environment and your history gave you.
And once we pull this idea upward, taking a broader view, we can see how deeply these financial patterns connect to the most fundamental parts of human existence.
How deep does it really go?
For many people, the origins of these money scripts and these intense shame responses are rooted in actual clinical psychological trauma.
Trauma changes everything.
It does. Childhood experiences, particularly abuse, severe neglect, or profound household instability, they do not just leave invisible emotional memories. They literally alter the physical neuropathways of the developing brain.
We rewire it.
Complex trauma disrupts the natural development of the brain's executive functioning centers and its affect regulation systems.
We did an incredibly powerful case study in the Journal of Financial Therapy that illustrates this intersection perfectly.
Yes, that study was eye-opening.
It detailed how, for individuals who have experienced complex trauma, especially childhood sexual abuse, the concepts of money, sex, and power become deeply tragically conflated in the psyche.
The intersection of those three elements creates a profound psychological bind. Consider a child who experiences abuse and immediately afterward is given a gift or cash by the abuser.
Oh, man.
That money is implicitly the price for silence. The child learns, at a foundational neurological level, that money is inherently dangerous. It is taboo.
It's tied directly to the pain.
It is inextricably linked to physical violation, unshakable guilt, and immense, overwhelming shame. As that child grows into an adult, their relationship with money is never going to be about balancing a budget or seeking the best interest rates.
How could it be?
Exactly. It is about navigating a daily minefield of trauma triggers. Every transaction carries the weight of the past.
The receipt from a purchase basically becomes a subconscious reminder of the silence.
Yes, it does.
And the research outlines 4 specific categories of financial shame that stem directly from this kind of trauma. First, there is a pervasive, almost paralyzing discomfort, even talking about money. The topic itself feels dangerous.
And second, there's a profound guilt over having any financial curiosity or wanting to understand personal finance.
Like guilt.
To understand why curiosity triggers guilt, you have to look at how taboo forms. If money is tied to violation, then wanting to understand money feels like wanting to engage with the violation.
Oh, I see. That makes a lot of sense.
The third category is viewing money as an inherent sin or something fundamentally evil entirely because of the pain associated with how it was historically used as a tool of control.
And the fourth category.
The fourth category, which is perhaps the most quietly damaging, is having absolutely zero entitlement to express financial needs.
So they just don't ask for anything.
The individual believes at their core that they do not deserve to take up space in the world, that they have no right to ask for what their labor is worth, or to possess the safety of financial security.
When the ink of that script was laid down so deeply and so painfully, how do we step out of it? Like, how do we rewrite it?
That's the work of therapy.
The therapeutic approach they discussed in the literature, narrative therapy, offers such a beautiful framework for this. It uses a clinical technique called externalizing the problem.
It's a very powerful tool.
Right. Instead of saying, I am bad with money, they refer to the traumatic financial pattern as an entity called the control.
The language we use internally matters immensely. By naming the problem the control, the therapist helps the individual physically and psychologically separate their identity from their financial struggles.
You are creating distance.
Yes, you are not your money problems.
Mhm.
The money problems are an external force, the control that has been influencing your life and your decisions.
That feels so much lighter.
When you separate your inherent sense of self from the conditioned behavior, you instantly remove the paralyzing weight of shame. You can look at the control objectively and ask yourself, when is the control speaking right now?
Right, like is this fear mine or is it the controls?
Exactly. And how can I choose to act differently than the control wants me to in this specific moment?
You transition from being a passive protagonist, acting out a tragic script someone else wrote, to becoming the active author of your own story.
You take the pen back.
It allows you to take the pen back. Because ultimately, money is just the canvas. It is the blank space on which we paint our deepest, most profound human needs.
That is so true.
Every transaction we make, every dollar we anxiously save, every receipt we hide in the center console of the car is an expression of our fundamental human desires. Our need to be loved, our desperate desire to be safe from harm, our hope to belong to a community, and our need to trust the people we sleep next to at night. Money is never just about money.
No, it never is.
It is always about emotional survival.
It is the architecture of our psychological safety. And once you understand the framework of that architecture, the sheer weight of the bandwidth tax, the biological reality of lost attention, the scripts you inherited, the trauma you carry, you can look at your own financial life not with a wrecking ball of self-judgment, but with the gentle, illuminating light of understanding.
Let's slowly recap the journey we have taken today. We started by looking at the emotional reality of money. The tight chest as the app loads, the hidden bags in the trunk, the emotional economy where dollars equal safety and self-worth.
We really covered a lot of ground.
We looked at the sheer cognitive weight of scarcity, how the bandwidth tax forces us into a tunnel, dropping our executive function and narrowing our vision entirely to immediate survival.
The air traffic controller.
Right. We examined the four money scripts we inherit: avoidance, worship, status, and vigilance, and how they dictate our behaviors. From what we buy to signal our worth to the tribe, to the secrets we keep to shield ourselves from vulnerability.
And we arrived at the profound truth that our financial behaviors are deeply human adaptations, sometimes born of generational trauma, but always driven by the need to survive emotionally.
There is absolutely no judgment here. There is only the recognition that you have been doing the absolute best you can with the cognitive resources, the nervous system, and the scripts available to you at any given moment.
But now you have the power to step out of the script.
Yes, the next time you sit down to look at your bank statement and you feel that familiar wave of emotion rising in your chest, you do not have to be swept away by it. You are allowed to look at that statement with quiet curiosity instead of harsh judgment.
You are allowed to observe the feeling, acknowledge it, and know that it is just a script, and you hold the pen.
And as we consider rewriting those scripts, I want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own. We have talked so much about the physical feelings attached to money, the receipts, the cash, the items.
Tangible things.
But as we move rapidly toward an entirely cashless society, where money becomes completely invisible, existing only as fleeting data on screens, how will our primal brains adapt? How will our nervous systems process a threat or a loss that we can't even hold in our hands?
That's a fascinating question.
It is a new frontier for the hidden emotional economy, and it is something worth observing in yourself.
Truly.
If this conversation felt true for you, if something in here landed, we would love for you to subscribe to Leone Patterns so you never miss what we explore next.
Leave a comment and tell us, what did this bring up for you? We read every single one.
We're building a community here, people who think about money differently, not as a number to chase, but as a human experience to understand.
You are not alone in this, and
No.
we are genuinely glad you are here at Leone Patterns.
Same pace, same questions. See you then.